Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this next episode of the Church Encourager podcast. I'm Doug. Dad is here with me. Great message this weekend, and I'm also looking forward to the message you have coming up this next weekend as well. But we're going to go ahead and check out our discussion guide for Kingdom Alignment, Part 8. And towards the start of the message, you talked about how two people can experience the same situation and walk away seeing completely different things. Can you think of a time when that happened in your life, or perhaps where you saw something one way and I saw something another way, or, maybe you have a story like that you could share as we kind of ease into the podcast today?
Ah, well, you catch me right off the bat with having to think. And I had not prepared for that. What did we well, we see things differently um, fairly often. I think I just had this thought that flashed in my brain where sometimes after we've worked on updating something, then I haven't seen it for a long time. But in my mind, it still looks the way it did the last time I was up there. And I remember we had we had updated one of the upper rooms for the youth, and I hadn't been up there for years. But the time I had been up there, it was pretty good at the time. This was 15 years ago, and it had big TVs and stuff they didn't have now, and it was pretty, it was pretty happening. I was good, and I, I remember at some point we had gotten some booths out of a restaurant or something, and they were really happy when they got them, but after some years everything was all wore out and everything. And I remember you coming, hey, we got to go. We have to update that room. I said, what are you talking about? That room's fantastic. So you took me up there and I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. This is terrible.
I think they were from the Chinese restaurant, so it just smelled like egg foo young in that room, and not fresh egg foo young either.
Uh, so, I also think a lot of times perspective, like I mostly at the facility now on the weekends, so I'm not there every day, unless they need me or I have to go in. I go in sometimes during the week, but generally not like at one point or like you are now, where you're pretty much over there every day.
Yeah.
And when you're in there every day, you kind of stop noticing things. But when you come in on the weekends, you notice things that nobody else sees, and I'll come in and go, how can nobody else see this? But I get it. It's because if you're there every day, you stop noticing those things. Like I had a couple of weeks ago, I noticed it was starting to smell damp. It's like, well, it shouldn't, because we have gone to great lengths that it doesn't do that anymore. Right? We have dehumidifiers everywhere. And I was like, why is it possibly damp in here? And nobody else was noticing it, but I wasn't there every day. And, we had some dehumidifiers that weren't running. And it's so humid down here this time of year that you have to have those things going. They like the amount of water that those dehumidifiers pump out of our facility.
There's all sorts of hoses coming out of our building that are just gushing all the time. We have like 10 dehumidifiers throughout the church, whether it's in classrooms or in the auditorium.
Yeah.
So,
Things are just depending on where you're at and how you're feeling. Sometimes it's something, they'll change something and all you can see, I liked it better before. But then you have to go, well, but it's better now. And those things are, just every day. But it really has an issue with what I was talking about more or less in the sermon, is what Jesus has been working on is getting our hearts aligned with his, so that we see like he does. And he sees things, much differently, because sometimes our first reaction in any situation is, how does this impact me? And oftentimes there's a lot bigger thing to look at. So anyway, those are the kinds of things I kind of think of about that.
Yeah. And really good stuff. I was gonna say, this last weekend I played bass, so it was the same stage, same platform, I guess, but different perspective, kind of in the back. So it is interesting to just go somewhere else, and even though it's the same view, it was completely different. It felt different. Um, and so I think it's healthy to kind of do that sometimes. Is like shake it up. You've always encouraged me to like look with different eyes. It's pretty common church practice that like we want to try to see what a new person to our church would see, and accommodate that as best as possible. Without being weird or insane about it. But yeah, yeah, good stuff there. Um, Jesus uses the image of a healthy eye versus an unhealthy eye to describe how we take in the world around us. In the Jewish context of his day, a healthy eye pointed to generosity and trust in God, while an unhealthy eye pointed to scarcity and fear. Which of these two ways do you think our culture can find ourselves going? I sort of know where your eye's going to go, which is what the question in the discussion guide says, but maybe we'll just kind of shift it to a cultural setting or whatnot. You're welcome to answer it honestly, if you're feeling a bit scarce. But anyway, maybe you can kind of expound on that point a little bit because it is really interesting. And do you have a tendency to trust in God's generosity or being afraid, which I think that's the real question there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I would hope for myself that I tend to pretty quickly go to see what God's going to do here
Yeah.
instead of, and I think through our history we've been pretty good at pivot. When something comes at us that, I always go back to the hurricane. That's not that long ago. I mean, that came, and my discussion with God is what now? And the thing that everybody knows what he said to me next was open the door and get out of the way. But how he takes those things, and so that reminded me again at that point in time that he got it. And when COVID hit, we were just ready to pivot again. I'm like, well, this is God's got this. Let's do something completely different. So we started giving stuff away, and because you both of those situations, a possibility would be that you hang on very tightly to everything. And yet the reality is if you open up and just let it flow through you, God takes care of you as well. And then there's, he does all kinds of cool things with it. And I think in both those situations that we were like, well, let's see what can we do to, it's not what we want, but maybe God can, if we give it to him, maybe he can use it to do other things. And he certainly does that all the time. Yeah, I hope at this juncture, I mean, I think it's a struggle for everybody, but I think most of the time I would default to, God's good. And we can trust him,
I feel like it gets easier to do that the older you get, because certainly in my 20s, the default, I'd love to say that I just trust in God all the time, but yeah, I can remember right before the storm really being nervous and upset because I was a brand new homeowner. I was like, look, yeah, this thing's gonna just destroy my life, and God brought life out of that, and yeah, just different pivot points, and in a season like this that I'm in right now, there's a lot of change happening. There's friends moving and neighbors moving who you've been praying for, and oh, they're coming to church, and then oh, now they're gone, and now the next one is in the Keys. We just have so much turnover, so we really do have to trust in God that things are going to be okay, that people are going to go, but you know God is always with us, and letting him do the thing, if you will, is what it comes down to. And it is easier in my mid 30s versus my mid 20s to do that, but obviously there's natural tendencies to not immediately trust or what have you done for me lately, I think, is a comment we give God far too often instead of look at everything you've done. Like, look how far we've gotten, and to still doubt, it's but
Well, that was
it happens to everybody. We all get there too with everything. I think it's just our mindset, and
which was one of the reasons I said at the end, the idea of being thankful every day is so huge.
it shifts it. Yeah.
I mean, just every day, right? Being grateful, grateful, grateful. And then it sort of helps focus the rest of the day because you're thankful and you remember all that he's done. It doesn't mean that there's not difficult situations or it always goes exactly the way you want, but that he's faithful.
Yeah. Let's do one more question. Jesus said in John 8:12 that whoever follows him will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. What does it practically look like in our daily lives to follow Jesus in a way that fills us with light rather than darkness?
Definitely a focus thing again. I mean, and it can get back to the trees. Which one are you gonna hang out with?
Yeah.
And what's gonna take that sort of attention of your life, which is why I say things all the time to folks like don't spend too much time on the news because it's dark, right? Um, and it can get you all stirred up, and then that leads you into being fearful and then trying to figure everything out, and then um, I think it's important that we know what's happening, but just like I said, I like headlines, and then I'll sort of process it from there, so I know how to pray. So I'm aware of what's going on in the world, but I for it to be a constant thing, that just the fear level goes up. So there's a lot of darkness in that we have to be careful of. Huh. And then, how what are you going to spend your day thinking about? And that also will make a difference between light and darkness. You're going to think of things, that are godly and helpful. And even if you're, moving through your day at work and everything, there's an attitude that I think is very helpful. Or you can get just caught up with what everybody else is doing, and there's generally no life there. So these are the sort of things that's stuff we talk about all the time. Make sure you're making time for the Lord. Make sure you're reading your Bible. Make sure you're praying. If you feel your thoughts going in bad directions, stop and pause and get them back and remember who God is and how much he loves you and that he's got you and, kind of move forward from there again. I just think it's important that you do that, that these ideas of sort of um, some daily habits that are healthy are important.
Yeah.
Or else because we have a very real enemy, he doesn't want you to do those things. He doesn't want you to you can get so distracted so quick that you miss those things. Doing good things. I find it all the time. So I have, I've always been a list guy. I have a list right now that gets me like, there's things that you need to do, but before you do
Right.
these things, don't
Right.
start doing them.
Yeah.
Or else I'm off and running and doing good things and I haven't done what really matters. And then I find myself getting frustrated and things aren't going well. And I could be mean and unsettled and not, be more consumed by what I'm doing than the people around me. And that's just not, it's just not a healthy way to live.
Yeah. It is very tempting to look ahead at a list and want to kind of skip over some of the things we don't really want to do and go ahead a few steps to get what we really want. But because we ignored the other things that we really ought to do, now we're just a huge mess and we would have saved way more time had we just started with doing what we were supposed to do. I've been building an app over the last couple of weeks for our church's tech ministry, and it's really exciting, but it's one of those things that can take up a lot of time if I'm not careful because it's kind of new and exciting. It's like, look at this, is amazing. And I start talking about it and everyone kind of checks out. So it's really only interesting to me for the most part. And I'm willing to accept that. But uh just even in moments like that, just taking a minute to like stop and spend some time with God. It doesn't all have to be go, 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 go. It should be some go, right? We need to do things, but as you've encouraged all of us and me, my whole life is just carve out some space and time for God and connect with Him, and don't sacrifice the best thing for good things, even right. So that Hopefully I got the semantics of that right, but
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's yeah,
it's absolutely right. You
yeah,
you could get so consumed doing something. This is a good thing,
yeah.
but it could take you to a spot where you're so wrapped up in it that you miss your time with God, you miss your time with your family, and you can keep saying, "Well, it's going to be well, just a couple more days," and then all of a sudden
It's
it's
always a couple more days.
8 weeks and 12 weeks, and I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
going to add this, and you can't finish, and um, so, I get it. I have a number of things that I'm working on, but I have to try to shut down, or else I wake up thinking about it.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
And I don't go to sleep thinking about it because I'm so tired. I just pass out. But- and I make myself, every day stop and go and spend time with Alice, and do things that are so that I'm coast into the evening and rested. But yeah, I get up going, and again, if I have something on my mind, if I don't carve out time to do my Bible reading and pray a little bit and have that coffee, I'll jump right into projects, even though they're good projects. And I'm like, oops. And then the day will be gone. But once I start, man, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to shift gears, and
Yeah.
that you start ignoring your house too. My pool needs a really good vacuum, and I've just ignored it. And so that's on my list for this afternoon instead of doing the fun air conditioned software development things that I
Yeah.
really want to do. But
At least it's a pool. You can get in it.
at least,
Maybe.
I'm complaining about having a pool to clean up, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we all are watching our heart conditions. And yeah, I'll spend some time praying, like, Lord, let me find the right filter so that I don't have to clean this in a more annoying way. So that's my prayer for today. 'Cause sand is hard to vacuum up out of a pool. Got to figure that out. But anyway, Dad, thank you so much. It was a great message this weekend. Looking forward to part 9 coming up. And to everybody listening, thank you for participating in the Church Encourager podcast. We will see you soon.
Yep. Bye.